The summer my youngest daughter turned 4 years old, we found ants in the kitchen. Not a few ants wandering across the counter, a trail of them, coming up through a gap in the baseboard behind the stove, crossing the counter, disappearing into the cabinet where I kept the flour and the sugar and the dried beans. When I pulled the flour canister out, there were hundreds of them inside it. I threw out the flour. I pulled everything out of that cabinet. I scrubbed the shelves with soap and water. I put everything back. 2 days later, the trail was back. My mother-in-law was visiting that week. She watched me scrubbing the cabinet for the second time, and she said nothing for a long moment. Then she went to her bag, which was a large, worn canvas bag she carried everywhere, and she pulled out a small paper bag folded over at the top. She handed it to me. She said, "Put a thin line of this along every baseboard in the kitchen, behind the stove, and across the threshold of every exterior door." She said, "Do it tonight and do not wash it away." I asked her what it was. She said the name, and I did not recognize it. She said it is a powder made from the fossils of tiny, ancient water creatures, ground so fine it feels like talcum powder between your fingers. She said it has been killing insects since long before anyone invented a spray can to do it, and it will still be killing them long after the spray cans are gone. I did what she told me that night. I put a thin line along every baseboard in the kitchen, behind the stove, under the refrigerator, across every doorway threshold. The ants were gone in 3 days. I have not had an ant problem in that kitchen in 14 years. The powder my mother-in-law handed me that evening is called Diatomaceous earth. It costs approximately $8 for a bag large enough to treat every room in a house 3 times over. It has been documented in scientific literature since the 1800s. It is approved for use in organic farming by the USDA. It is safe to use around children, around animals, around food storage areas when applied correctly. And the pest control industry, which charges American households an average of $500 per year for contracts that renew automatically and deliver a technician with a spray tank 4 times a year, does not want you to know it exists. I'm going to explain exactly what it is, exactly how it works, exactly where and how to apply it, and exactly why it is absent from every conversation a pest control salesperson has ever had with you. Diatomaceous earth is a naturally occurring sedimentary rock composed of the fossilized skeletal remains of diatoms, which are single-celled aquatic algae that have existed on this planet for hundreds of millions of years. Diatoms build their cell walls from silica, the same mineral that makes up quartz and glass. When they die, their silica skeletons accumulate on the floors of lakes, rivers, and ocean beds over millions of years. These deposits are mined, dried, and ground into the fine white powder that my mother-in-law carried in that folded paper bag. Under a microscope, diatomaceous earth is not a smooth powder. It is a collection of microscopic, razor-sharp fragments. Each individual diatom fossil has a structure like a tiny glass cage full of sharp edges and porous surfaces. To a human being, or to any warm-blooded animal, these fragments are too small to cause any harm. We inhale ordinary silica dust throughout our lives without significant effect. But to an insect, contact with diatomaceous earth is catastrophic. Insects have an exoskeleton, a hard outer shell that protects their internal organs. Critically, this exoskeleton is coated with a thin layer of waxy oils that prevent the insect from losing moisture through its shell. The insect's entire water balance depends on this waxy coating remaining intact. When an insect walks through diatomaceous earth, the sharp, microscopic fragments of the powder physically scratch and penetrate this waxy coating. The damage is invisible to the naked eye, but it is devastating to the insect. Once the waxy coating is compromised, the insect begins losing moisture through its exoskeleton at a rate it cannot replace through drinking. It desiccates. It dries out from the inside. The process typically takes between 24 and 72 hours, depending on the insect species and the environmental humidity. The insect cannot develop resistance to this mechanism the way it can develop resistance to a chemical pesticide. You cannot evolve your way around drying out. The physics of water loss through a damaged exoskeleton do not change regardless of how many generations of insects are exposed to the powder. This is the fundamental reason diatomaceous earth is different from every chemical pesticide the pest control industry sells. Chemical pesticides work by disrupting specific biological processes in the insect. The insect's nervous system, its reproductive cycle, its hormonal regulation. These are chemical mechanisms, and insects can and do evolve resistance to them over generations. This is why pest control companies need to periodically switch the chemicals they use, why the same spray that worked on cockroaches 20 years ago is less effective today, and why the contracts renew every year rather than solving the problem permanently. A solved problem is not a recurring revenue stream. Diatomaceous earth does not work through chemistry. It works through physics. Scratching a waxy coating and allowing moisture to escape is not a biological process that can be evolved around. Every insect that walks through a properly maintained application of diatomaceous earth is affected by it, regardless of its genetic resistance to any chemical compound. The pest control industry is aware of diatomaceous earth. They use it themselves in certain applications, particularly in food processing facilities where chemical pesticides are not permitted. They know it works. They do not include it in their customer-facing sales conversations because a bag of diatomaceous earth that costs $8 and lasts a year does not generate a $500 annual contract. Now let me tell you exactly which insects diatomaceous earth works on, because it is not effective against every pest, and I want to be honest with you about that. Diatomaceous earth is highly effective against any insect or arachnid with a soft or waxy exoskeleton that moves across surfaces where the powder has been applied. Ants of all species, cockroaches, fleas, bedbugs, earwigs, silverfish, carpet beetles, grain weevils, and other stored food pests, spider mites, clover mites, mealybugs, thrips, fungus gnats, dust mites in carpet and bedding. The list is extensive because the mechanism is universal to insects and arachnids. Diatomaceous earth is less effective against flying insects that do not spend significant time walking across treated surfaces. Mosquitoes, flies, and moths that spend most of their time airborne are less exposed to ground applications. For flying insects, different methods are more appropriate, and I have covered some of those in previous videos. Diatomaceous earth is also less effective in high humidity environments because moisture reduces the powder's ability to absorb the waxy coating from the insect's exoskeleton. In very humid conditions, the powder itself absorbs atmospheric moisture and becomes less effective. This means it works best in moderately dry indoor environments and is less reliable in basements with standing moisture issues or in outdoor applications during rainy periods. Address moisture problems first, then apply diatomaceous earth. It is important to purchase food-grade diatomaceous earth rather than pool-grade diatomaceous earth. Pool-grade diatomaceous earth is chemically treated during processing, and the particle structure is different. It is not safe to use indoors around people and animals. Food-grade diatomaceous earth is the natural, mined, and minimally processed product. It is sold at farm supply stores, health food stores, and online. The label will specify food grade. Brands like Harris, Safer Brand, and Fossil Power sell reliable food-grade products. An 8-pound bag costs $7 to $10 and is sufficient for a full house treatment with product left over. Let me now walk you through the complete application method for every major pest situation, because the technique matters as much as the product. For ants entering from outside, which was my kitchen situation 14 years ago, the application targets the entry points and the travel paths. Apply a thin, continuous line, about the width of a pencil, along every baseboard in affected rooms. Apply across every threshold at exterior doors. Apply around the base of any exterior wall penetrations, pipe entries, electrical conduit entries, gaps around window frames at floor level. The line needs to be thin and continuous. A thick pile of powder is easier for ants to walk around or to push aside. A thin, continuous line that they cannot avoid stepping through is far more effective. Think of it as a fence, not a barrier wall. Sprinkle a light dusting behind the stove, behind the refrigerator, under the dishwasher, and along the back of cabinet interiors where the baseboard meets the cabinet floor. These are the areas where ant trails run inside walls and transition to inside the kitchen. Getting powder into these areas using a small puff bottle or a makeup brush to push it into tight spaces puts it directly in the path of the insects rather than simply around the perimeter. For cockroaches, which are one of the most difficult pest problems to eliminate with chemical pesticides because they rapidly develop chemical resistance, diatomaceous earth applied in the specific areas where cockroaches shelter and travel is highly effective. Cockroaches hide in warm, dark, narrow spaces during the day, behind the refrigerator and stove, inside the motor housing at the bottom of the refrigerator, in the gap between the counter and the wall behind appliances, under the sink in the cabinet base, inside electrical outlet boxes on kitchen walls, which are warm from the wiring and attract cockroaches as harborage sites. Apply a thin puff of powder into each of these areas using a small squeeze bottle or a dedicated powder applicator. You are not trying to fill the space. You are coating the surfaces these insects walk across daily. For fleas in carpeted rooms, the application is a light dusting across the entire carpet surface. Work the powder into the carpet fibers with a stiff brush or a broom so it reaches the base of the fibers where flea eggs and larvae live. Leave it for a minimum of 72 hours without vacuuming. The powder needs time to contact the fleas as they move through the carpet. After 72 hours, vacuum thoroughly. Reapply and repeat the process every 2 weeks for 3 treatment cycles. Flea eggs hatch on a 2-week cycle, and treating repeatedly through multiple hatch cycles eliminates the population at every life stage. For bed bugs, which are one of the most distressing and expensive pest problems in modern homes, diatomaceous earth, applied in the specific locations where bed bugs harbor, is a primary component of effective treatment. Apply powder along the seams of the mattress and box spring. Apply inside the box spring frame if it is a fabric-covered type by making small cuts in the fabric on the underside and puffing powder inside. Apply along the perimeter of the bed frame, inside the joints and hollow sections of the frame, under the bed across the entire floor area, behind the headboard, and around the baseboard of the entire bedroom. Bed bugs must cross treated surfaces to reach the sleeping host. This application creates a barrier at every point of approach. I want to be honest about bed bugs specifically. A severe bed bug infestation that has spread to multiple rooms and multiple furniture pieces requires persistent treatment over several months and may benefit from professional heat treatment in severe cases. Diatomaceous earth is highly effective as part of a bed bug treatment program and as a preventive maintenance measure. For a light to moderate infestation caught early, it can resolve the problem without professional intervention. For a heavy infestation that has been present for a long time, it is most effective in combination with other methods. For stored grain pests, the weevils, grain beetles, and flour moths that infest flour, rice, oats, cornmeal, and other dry goods, diatomaceous earth can be mixed directly with the grain for long-term storage. Mix 1 cup of food-grade diatomaceous earth with 50 pounds of grain and store in a sealed container. The powder coats the grain kernels and kills any insects that contact it during storage. This method has been used in grain storage for generations and is approved for use in certified organic grain storage. It does not affect the nutritional content of the grain and washes off during the normal preparation process. My family stores all dry goods this way and has not had a stored grain pest problem in years. For garden pests, diatomaceous earth applied to the soil surface around the base of plants and dusted directly onto plant leaves provides protection against soil-dwelling pests and soft-bodied leaf-eating insects. Apply when the leaves are slightly damp so the powder adheres. Reapply after rain. It is effective against aphids, flea beetles, squash bugs, cucumber beetles, and other soft-bodied garden pests. It is safe around honeybees when not applied to open flowers during active bee foraging hours. Apply in the evening when bees have returned to the hive, and the application will be dry and settled by morning. Now let me tell you about the safety of diatomaceous earth in detail, because I know some of you are wondering, and the answer matters, especially for those with children and animals in the home. Food-grade diatomaceous earth is on the GRAS list, which stands for Generally Recognized as Safe, maintained by the Food and Drug Administration. It is approved as an anti-caking agent in animal feed and as a grain storage treatment. It has been used safely around children and animals for generations on farms and homesteads. The one precaution worth taking seriously is inhalation during application. Diatomaceous earth is a very fine powder, and any fine powder inhaled in large quantities is an irritant to the respiratory system. This does not mean it is toxic. It means use common sense during application. If you are applying large quantities in an enclosed space, wear a simple dust mask during the application process. Once the powder has settled onto surfaces, it is not airborne and presents no inhalation risk during normal living. For pets, diatomaceous earth is safe once settled. During application, keep pets out of the treatment area for an hour to allow the dust to settle. After settling, pets walking across treated surfaces are not harmed. Food-grade diatomaceous earth is actually used as a natural dewormer for livestock by many farmers, including my family. We add it to our animal feed at a specific ratio. This is a traditional practice that predates modern veterinary dewormers. Do not apply diatomaceous earth near open beehives or inside active beehive equipment. The same mechanism that kills pest insects will harm honeybees on direct contact. Apply it around the garden and in the home. Keep it away from the hive entrance and from flowers during bee foraging hours. This brings me to something I want to say directly about the choice between this method and the pest control contract. The average American household spends between $400 and $800 per year on pest control services. The chemicals applied during those quarterly visits break down within weeks, which is why the quarterly schedule exists. The problem is treated 4 times a year instead of eliminated, because treating a problem 4 times a year is a business model, and eliminating it permanently is not. I am not saying pest control professionals are dishonest. Many of them are skilled and knowledgeable people doing their jobs within a system that is structured around recurring revenue. I am saying the system they operate within has no financial incentive to solve your pest problem permanently. It has every financial incentive to manage it indefinitely. $8 in diatomaceous earth, maintained along baseboards and in harborage areas, reapplied twice a year or after deep cleaning, is a permanent structural change to your home's pest environment. Insects do not build resistance to it. It does not break down into ineffectiveness within weeks. It sits where you put it, doing what it does until it is physically removed. The economics are not close. My mother-in-law knew this. Her mother knew it before her. This knowledge has been on working farms and in working households since long before the pest control industry existed. It was not lost. It was displaced, made to seem obsolete by an industry that profits from the displacement. That displacement of practical household knowledge is something my husband and I have spent years trying to reverse in our own small way. The pest methods, the garden and planting knowledge, the food preservation systems that let you store what you grow through the full year, the healing plant preparations that have been in our family's kitchen since before any of us were born, the household chemistry that costs almost nothing and replaces products that cost hundreds of dollars a year, the calendula salve, the chamomile preparations, the fermentation traditions that keep a household fed through the winter without depending on what the store decides to stock. All of it written down, all of it documented from practice on this property across generations of real use. The link is in the description, or find everything on our channel. Start with the kitchen this week. Buy a bag of food-grade diatomaceous earth at your local farm store or hardware store, or order it online. $8. Apply a thin line along every kitchen baseboard tonight, behind the stove, under the refrigerator, across the threshold of every exterior door. Tell me in the comments what pest problem has been giving you trouble and how long you have been dealing with it. I read every single comment and I try to answer as many as I can, because every home situation is different and the application details matter. Next time, I am going to show you the method my grandmother used to keep flies completely out of her kitchen and her food storage areas through the entire summer, using one plant that costs nothing if you grow your own, and $2 at any garden center if you do not. No spray, no trap, no zapper. The flies simply do not enter. I will see you then.